Affirmative action has been a subject of great debate for many people and institutions, including Centenary. In response, we have come up with a policy we believe will best maximize the happiness and support the best learning environment for all students. That policy being that affirmative action is to be used as a means to make classrooms more diverse, which will in turn push society and shape it to a point where race is not a deciding factor. About hate speech, the policy is that hate speech is a form of derogatory attack which will not be tolerated because it does not support the progressive idea of moving towards an educational society in which race means no more than eye color, which is expressed by Sturba in many of his articles. Here are 4 points which can better explain our policy on affirmative action. If affirmative action were to be enforced at Centenary, it would make classrooms more inclusive. Students will learn more with the differing viewpoints and opinions based on their upbringing, which can be greatly influenced by race or how their race may be viewed. The second point is that it makes classrooms more representative of the real world. Classrooms without affirmative action can be misleading when looked at next to a real-world percentage, as shown in many different forms of research. Without affirmative action, the percentages of minorities in classrooms is many times much smaller than represented in a holistic society. Third point is that it would keep students from feeling singled out due to race. Students' opinions could be expressed without fear because they will have people in the class which will be more capable of understanding through solidarity what they mean because of sharing race. The fourth and final point is that it would encourage frank conversation and discussions of race. Back to the point before this, where people of the same minority in attendance would be able to understand each other through solidarity. Talk of race and racial issues will become slowly less and less taboo when they are talked about in a more matter-of-fact way because there will be no fear of talking about it.
The affirmative action policy that we are proposing has a long-term goal. This long-term goal is to create a society where race matters as much as eye color does in most societies. This means equality. This means that the more multicultural students that we put into elite colleges, creating more multicultural professionals breaks stereotypes. This means that many people of different races would go into fields which they had not previously considered, in which no one from their racial group has been before. And this would promote a race-free society where no one thinks certain jobs are for white people or black people or any specific race or sex. Coinciding with this is our policy on hate speech. We think that hate speech is contrary to the goal of many colleges, which is education. It intimidates students that are of the minority, and it also promotes fear and hinders discussion. These are obviously not things that you want to have in a learning environment. So through affirmative action paired with this, we would have more students. So when hate speech codes are violated, more students would be together and have solidarity. Many would say that speech codes violate our First Amendment right to free speech. We disagree and say that our speech code would only limit speech in so much as it prevents the saying of words that are meant to harm others based on their sex, sexual orientation, or race.
As Paul would argue, many minorities that are unprepared are more likely to fail. If one attends poor school districts, then they will be less prepared for college. This lack of funding leads to a lack of proper preparation techniques, such as practice SAT tests. This lack of preparation would then in turn put them at a disadvantage, which increases their likelihood to fail. However, like we believe, academic indicators are not always correct. This calls into question what should a college determine to be important in an applicant and why. According to studies by Angela Duckworth, self-discipline has a far greater relation to school performance than test grades or IQ scores. Some may argue that less qualified individuals will get into schools simply because of their race. The more qualified an individual is, the better they will do. And by letting these qualified students the school is hindering its academic standard. However, a classroom with diversity can offer different learning experiences to an individual. By getting to see different viewpoints, one's learning experience is far greater. Ogden and Richards state that the first necessity is to remember that since the past histories of individuals differ except in certain very simple respects, it is probable that the reactions to and employment of any general word will vary. Under our policy, affirmative action is to be used as a gateway towards racial equality as a society. This would then in turn make classrooms more inclusive. It would also make classrooms more representative of the real world. It keeps minority students from being singled out and encourages frank conversation and discussion of race. Under our policy, race would be as unimportant as eye color, and also race does not predict academic future. Hate speech is a derogatory and will not be supported in our progressive ideals.